But the question is, how are we going to act and adapt into these changes? So start with, may I present my members. First is Reynaldo Breñas, Mary Gwen Agustin, Rachel Dangan, Daniel Alia Tesabun, Maureen Rojas, Angel De La Cruz, Zaira Khan, and yours truly, Alder Meda. Our learning objectives are differentiate four continuous change organization development interventions. Second, know the elements and processes related with the dynamic strategy making interventions. Third, describe the demands of turbulent environment and the self-designed interventions. Fourth, value the significance of organization learning interventions. And lastly, delineate the logic and process of developing built-to-change organizations. This chapter describes interventions that enable organizations to change themselves continually. Continuous change interventions extend transformational change that focus on learning, changing, and adapting on how to produce a constant flow of new strategies and designs, and not just on how to transform existing ones. So to start with these interventions, let's have dynamic strategy making. It uses a process of guided involvement to help organizations implement a strategic system. So basically, it addresses both the content of what strategy to formulate and how these strategies can be implemented. The next one is self-designing organizations. So they have the capability to alter themselves fundamentally and continuously. So this intervention includes considerable innovation and learning as an organization gain the capacity to design and implement significant changes continually. And next, learning organizations. So this intervention helps organizations move beyond solving existing problems. Move beyond problems to gain the capability to improve constantly. And lastly, build to change organizations. So this intervention provides design and implementation guidelines for building change capabilities into the structure, processes, and behaviors of the organization so that it can be respond continually to a rapid change environment. So these interventions can further elaborate by my other members. So first, I will elaborate more about dynamic strategy making. So first is dynamic strategy making. So basically, these interventions focuses on how we're going to change or adapt strategies in a most flexible way. So dynamic strategy making creates a continuous strategic change process intended to improve performance and effectiveness over time. Grainer and Cummins developed the dynamic strategy making process based on their research and practice in strategy implementation. So they are the one who proposed several criteria for an effective strategic change process. So first is speed over delay. So this concept basically focuses on how organization gathers more information and assessing more solutions. But the problem is there are lack of action and implementations. Next is breadth over narrowness. So this criteria focus on how the organization be innovative and think on possible solutions into adapting changes. But the problem is some organization focuses on one idea of a specific stakeholders. Next, next is flexibility over rigidity. So organizations, if want to be improved and to adopt changes, we must be flexible. But the problem is organizations are holding back because of lack of resources, budgets, and their policies. Next is what is empowerment over autocracy. So why organizations are implementing change? It is because they want to improve the whole organization together with its members. So from the word itself, empowerment, the organization must give its members the freedom to respond to these local changes, not just to give this opportunity of adopting this change to the top management. Next one is simplicity. The next one is simplicity over complexity. So, in implementing changes such as giving new strategies, these strategies need to be concrete and specific enough to be acted, but not so detailed because it gives the freedom for the members of the organization to innovate and to act by themselves in adopting these changes. And lastly, unity over fragmentation. So basically, strategy must promote consistent and integrated action for an organization to not lose coordination and deviate from the intended strategies. So moving forward, there is a conceptual framework that shows a dynamic strategy system. So the flowchart has a dynamic and complex environments and evolving resources and capabilities. These two factors need to be addressed by the statement in the box on the middle, the strategic system. So it has two factors, the statement of strategic direction and strategy process. So this flowchart can be elaborated by the next reporter.
Strategic process involves identifying the relevant stakeholders who should be involved directly in strategy making process and engaging them in a highly interactive set of conversations and debates about the organization's strategic direction and how to move forward. So we have four elements of statement of strategic direction. First, we have the competitive logic. An effective strategy centers on a value proposition that connects the firm's capabilities to market opportunities. This value proposition is the competitive logic, or how the firm will compete in the marketplace, and includes a statement about the organization's market position and customer tiebreakers. The second element is the goals. Rainer and Cummings suggest that goals represent the unifying target for achievement and should be separated into financial goals and a single rallying goal. The third element was the organization. This element describes the formal organization design that align work, structure, human resource practices, and management processes to the competitive logic and goals. And the fourth element is the action plan. This element describes the initiative and specific steps required to implement the strategy and to ensure that everyone's daily behavior reflects the strategy. So we have tools and concepts in the form of building blocks that supports dynamic strategy making. So we have the first, choosing relevant stakeholders. The dynamic strategy making process is kicked off by identifying and recruiting the relevant stakeholders. Getting the right stakeholders involved from the start that ensures that the strategy system is a more realistic formulation of the strategy and has the commitment necessary to support its implementation. The next is holding the first retreat. The purpose of the first retreat is to create an initial draft of the statement of strategic direction, especially the competitive logic and goal elements. The next is engaging stakeholders between first and second retreats. Between the first and second retreats, senior managers reflect on their work and perform reality tests on the validity of assumptions in the statement. The primary method for this testing is through feedback on the draft statement from the stakeholders. The next is holding the second retreat. The purpose of second retreat is to review the feedback, finalize the competitive logic and goals statements, and complete the statement of strategic direction. And the last, implementing actions. Following the second retreat, organizations have several options for moving forward. All of them involve putting effort into pursuing statement of strategic direction.
Self-designing organizations require the ability to radically and constantly alter themselves. It involves a set of activities, information, acquisition, valuation, diagnosis, design, implementation, and assessment. According to Moorman and Cummings, develop the self-design intervention in response to a number of demands facing organizations in turbulent environments. It involves cycle of diagnosing, designing, and implementing activities that managers and employees at all levels of the firm can carry out. In discussion of the demand of turbulent environment and then describe the application stages of self-design. The demand of turbulent environments. Turbulent environments, both complex and changing rapidly. When change are abrupt and unpredictable, they occur. The essence of the demand for change and the pace at which the company must be able to respond to an act are main environmental concerns. It seems that the degree of environmental turbulence affects the structure. Number 1, change is constant. Number 2, the direction of change is unclear. Top executives must formulate a strategy and clarify a vision of what the organization needs to look like to support it. Middle and lower levels of the organization need to put those broad parameters into operation by creating structures, procedures, and behavior to implement the strategy.
The next topic that I'm discussing is the self-design change process, adapted from Norman and Cummings, 1989. The figure shows the self-design approach. In a typical case, a case design team guides the intervention. It can be the top management team or a cross-functional or cross-level group made up of formal and informal leaders, high potential managers, or selected employees and staff. Experience suggests that if the top management is not the design team, then at least 1 to 2 members from the top management should be the design team, which represents seniors management perspectives and serves as a liaison between the two groups. And the self-design change process involves 5 stages, which involves clarifying the strategy, laying the foundation including valuing, acquiring knowledge, and diagnosing, and the third stage is creating the design criteria, fourth stage will be designing, and the last one is implementing and assessing. And now let's proceed to the first stage, which is the clarifying the strategy. That involves making the organization strategy clear. We need to have a clear strategy for us to be guided for the whole process of change in the organization. And now, after clarifying the strategy, we are moving to the second stage, laying the foundation. This stage provides the design team with the basic knowledge and information needed. That involves valuing, acquiring knowledge, and diagnosing. In this stage, we are creating ourselves to have a good foundation to start change. With these 3 activities, the valuing, acquiring knowledge, and diagnosing, we would be able to adopt changes. First, valuing, determining the beliefs and values that will guide the change process. And acquiring knowledge, how would be able to acquire knowledge, of course, from learning from our experiences, reading relevant topics, and we need to acquire knowledge for us to be guided and for us to learn how should the self-design process revolves. And lastly, diagnosing the current organization to determine what needs to be changed to enact the strategy and values. In this activity, we would be able to understand what should the norms and beliefs that needed for changes. And after the second stage, we are now moving to the third stage, creating design criteria. In this stage, the design team develops the principles and standards that will guide the new organization design. They describe any organization capabilities required by the strategy that the new organization will need to be able to do support the strategy and how the organization is expected to operate. And here is the example of a design criteria that we can see it is an action-oriented, specific and measurable, future-oriented, and linked to creating a strategic advantage. For the fourth stage is the designing. The design team generates alternative organization designs and innovation to reflect the strategy, values, and design criteria. In this stage, the result in an overall design for the organization, detailed design for the components, and preliminary implementation plans for how everything will fit together. And for the last stage of the self-design change process is the implementing and assessing. It involves making the new design happen by putting into place the new structures, practices, and systems. It also includes an ongoing cycle of action learning, which is the changing structures and behaviors, assessing progress, and making necessary modifications. And that concludes the topic of the self-design intervention and also the self-design change process that involves clarifying, laying out the foundation, creating design criteria, designing and implementing and assessing. The next topic is learning organizations, which discussed by Miss Maureen and Miss Angel.
Organizational learning interventions emphasizes the structure and social processes that enables the teams and employees to learn and share knowledge. Organizational learning focuses on changing the behavior by changing the way people solve the problems and addresses opportunities. On the other hand, knowledge learning focuses on the tools and equipment that enables the organization to collect, translate, and organize the information into a useful knowledge. As a result, it is seen that it is part of management processes that makes the knowledge learning as an important part of organizational learning. Moreover, it only means that when knowledge and learning are translated into a specific products or services, it is the time that they become a key source of wealth creation for the organization. The framework shows that specific organization characteristics, such as structure and human resource systems, influence how the organizational learning are being carried out. The learning process affects the amount and kind of knowledge that being used in the organization. The knowledge itself creates a big impact on the actual performance and the output, such as product quality and customer service. Organization knowledge and performance depends on the organization's competitive strategy. The organization knowledge will lead to high performance when the strategy are being applied appropriately. The connection between organization learning and knowledge management is that it addresses how the organization can be molded to promote effective learning processes and how it can be improved for the organizational learning intervention. There are different characteristics of learning organizations, namely structures, information systems, human resources, organization culture, and leaders model.
So there are three types of learning, which are the single loop, double loop, and tutorial learning. So the single loop or adaptive learning mainly focus on improving the status quo. It is the most prevalent type of learning process in an organization, and it enables the members to reduce errors or gaps between the desired and existing conditions. It can also produce an incremental change on how the organizations function. So the second one is the double loop learning, which is also called as generative learning. It aims to change the status quo. Here, the members learns how to change the existing assumptions and conditions within which the single loop learning operates. This level of learning can lead to a transformational change where the status quo itself is radically altered. So the last one is the tutorial learning. It involves learning how to learn. It is directed to the learning process itself. and it seeks to improve how organizations perform on the double loop and single loop learning. OD practitioners have developed interventions specifically for organization learning processes. Organizational learning is not concerned with the organization as a static entity, but as an active process of sense-making and organizing. This active learning process enables members to develop, test, and modify mental models or maps of organizational reality. It is called theory in use. These cognitive maps inform members' behavior and organizing. They guide how members make decisions, perform work, and organize themselves. Unfortunately, members' theories in use can be faulty, resulting to ineffective behaviors and organizing efforts. Moving on, the OL interventions help organization members to change from Model 1 to Model 2 learning and become more capable of single loop learning, double loop learning, and tutorial learning. Like all other learning, this change approach includes discovery, invention, production, and generalization processes. Although the application phases are described linearly below, in practice they form a recurrent cycle of 4 overlapping learning activities. And the first one is discover theories in use and their consequences. So discover theories in use and their consequences. In this first step, it involves the uncovering of members' mental models or theories and their consequences that follows from behaving and organizing according to them. So OL practitioners have developed a variety of techniques to help members identify their theories in use. So one of these approaches is called the dialogue, a variant of the human process intervention described in the chapter 10. It involves members in exchange about how they currently address their problems, make decisions, and interact with each other and relevant stakeholders such as suppliers, customers, and competitors. The second method of identifying theories in use involves the application of what we call the systems thinking. It is a set of concepts and tools for detecting subtle but powerful structures that underlie complex situations. Learning to see such structures can help members understand previously known forces operating in the organization and their behavioral consequences. The third technique for identifying theories in use and revealing the assumptions is called left-hand, right-hand column. It is with a member selecting a specific situation where he or she is interacting with other in a way that produces ineffective result. The situation is described in a form of screenplay or movie script that is written on the right side of the page. The fourth method that helps people to discover their mental models and theories is called the ladder of inference, as shown in the figure. It is a tool that aids in understanding how concrete experiences are connected to the assumptions and beliefs that guide behavior. The ladder shows vividly how members' theories is used can be faulty and lead to ineffective actions. People may draw invalid conclusions from limited experience. Their cultural and personal biases may distort meaning attributed to selected data. So the ladder of inference can help the members to understand why their theories are invalid and their behaviors and organizing efforts are ineffective. So the next one is invent and produce more effective theories in use. So this is based on what is discovered in the first step of the change process. Members invent and produce theories that can lead to a more effective actions and more closely aligned with the Model 2 learning. Many of the interventions described in this book can help to support more effective learning capabilities, such as techno-structural interventions, which is a process-based and network structure, self-managing work teams, and re-engineering. This can provide kinds of lateral linkages and teamwork needed to process, develop, and share diverse information and knowledge. The second one is the human process changes. It is a team building, search conference, and intergroup relations interventions that can help members to develop kinds of healthy interpersonal relationship that underlie an effective OL or organizational learning. So the third one is strategic interventions, which is a dynamic strategy making and alliances that can help organizations to gain knowledge about their environments and develop values and norms to promote organizational learning.
Attend to the knowledge management practice that support learning. Organization learning application process must attend the system for generating, organizing, and distributing knowledge. Continuously improve and monitor the learning process. Assessing the organization learning strategy, organizational structure, processes, and continuous monitoring will help to generate a positive outcome that will help the organizational learning. The next topic would be build to change organization that will be discussed by the next presenter.
So for the last chapter of this topic, here we go for the 19.4 Build to Change Organizations. So one of the newest continuous change interventions involves intentionally designing an entire organization for change and not stability. As we move forward to this chapter, we will conclude that B2C or Build to Change approach to designing organizations is based on the simple fact that organizations are designed for stability and dependable operations. It is because B2C intervention helps organizations design themselves for change. An example of this is the DMT, a small but global business that designs, builds, and installs sophisticated food processing systems. They adopted the socio-technical systems policy and introduced self-managing teams and other empowering structures into most of the operations function. So under DMT, there are 4 organizations learning interventions activities. The first one is the Complexity Concepts Workshop. This intensive workshop represented an introduction to the concepts and organizing principles associated with complexity, learning, and dialogue. The second one is the dialogue training. Groups of 10 to 15 people were introduced to dialogue as a communication process that supported the principles of complexity and the practice of organization learning. The third one is the dolphin training, a leadership metaphor based on the strategy of dolphin. It is to do what works and forget the rest, as a set of empowerment guidelines for action and decision making. The last one is the Visioning Conference. It is the final intervention wherein a one-day dialogue-based workshop suggested that the company's true vision incorporates the personal vision of each other or each member. The traditional principles. For the traditional principles, we have the strategy, wherein there are short-term and static environmental scans and industry analysis. This is where pursuit of a sustainable competitive advantage takes place. The stability assumption first shows up in the way organizations formulate strategy. As a result, strategies are formulated, budgets and goals are set, and any successful competitive advantage is expected to last. For the design, focus on efficiency over effectiveness. The company or the employees are expected to know what to do well, and alignment as the key to performance. Traditional organizations view organization design as a set of relatively stable features that only get better through continuous improvement, rather than thinking about how structure management process, and HR systems need to change to increase effectiveness, traditional organizations become enamored with short-term efficiency and reliability initiatives. For the dynamic principles, we have strategizing. This is where long-term alternative scenarios and contingency planning takes place, and also the pursuit of a series of momentary advantages. B2C organizations move from static to dynamic views of strategy using interventions like dynamic strategy, making described previously in this chapter. Instead of believing that any competitive advantage will last, they recognize that any particular advantage is fleeting or short-lived. And for the designing, they focus on effectiveness over efficiency. And they also ask themselves, what do they need to learn? Change as the key to performance. Built to change organizations recognize that change is never over and so focus more on effectiveness than efficiency. B2C organizations do work to improve existing systems and processes, but using change processes like self-designing organizations, they allocate significant resources to thinking about how organization design elements need to be changed. Lawler and Worley stress that not all organizations should be built to change, though most could benefit from applying some B2C principles. This is because this intervention is mainly for organizations having problems adapting to complex and rapidly changing environment. They require a change capability for success.
Transition to a Build to Change organization initiatives. The first one is reframe culture as a facilitator of change. This stage addresses the organization's culture, and we all know that culture is the most stable part of an organization. And to enhance member commitment to a new change-friendly culture, these reframe values and norms are placed in the context of important external pressures facing the organization and what this means for its effectiveness. The second one is redefine organization design components for flexibility. Each feature of an organization's design can be created under an assumption of stability or flexibility. And this second step in moving to a build to change organization is to design and implement those components with flexibility in mind. And the third one is build an orchestration capability. This stage helps the organization leverage the flexibility built into the organization's strategy and design. An orchestration capability enables the organization to implement changes in strategy and to execute design changes effectively over and over again. Also, build to change designs stress the importance of shared leadership throughout the organization. So, the next one is creating a build to change organization at Capital One Financial. Capital One is a leading financial services firm and the top issuer of credit cards in the United States. And this company shows one of the application of Build to Change, to which it shows how change capability is built into the firm's strategy, design, features, and culture. And so, ADCAR process is a Capital One's embedded approach to which was based on a standardized change methodology that everyone shared and learned. It proposed the successful change followed a process of creating awareness and the need for change, having the desire to change, possessing the knowledge to change, having the ability to change, and being reinforced for change. The change model included a common language and mindset for thinking and communicating about organizational change. Standardized Change Methodology or ADCAR. To implement this new change method, McDermott's team applied three action layers that includes knowledge or skill acquisition, visible demonstrations, and alignment with performance management. In this, Capital One offers courses and training to measure employees' capability to change, to which it is treated like a muscle and gets better with exercise. To sum, in this chapter, we discuss about the increasingly sophisticated interventions for helping organizations conduct strategic change. These change processes are particularly applicable for organizations facing turbulent environments where traditional sources of competitive advantage erode quickly. Building change capabilities directly into the organization is essential to constantly renew forms of competitive advantage to keep pace with a rapidly shifting environment. And that concludes our report.
Huh? I have an idea. I'm gonna call myself the stock sugar. God, allergies. I don't have any more. Good. Okay, hello. Can I have an appointment with you? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I'll check the night. Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Microtech Company is one of the biggest company in the Philippines right now, but the organization started humbly like other organizational firms. Despite its aim to create fundamental software technology for everyone, MTC faced major challenges before they climbed to the top. One day, an aspiring computer programmer named Ray Brinas got his hands on the issue of Popular Electronics magazine. The cover featured an image of the world's first mini computer kit to rival commercial models, the Altar 8800 microcomputer. Ray's idea was to adopt the beginner's all-purpose symbolic instruction code, better known as Basic Programming Language, for the Altar 8800. The Altar 8800 was a revolutionary machine. However, like many microcomputers of the age, the Altar 8800 is lacked of interpreter, computer programs that executed the source code provided to them by the machine's compiler. His idea is to adopt interpreter built using BASIC.
We need skilled programmers.
Microtech holds an incredible business opportunity to essentially create an entirely new category within the evolving computing industry, but it did not last as they expected it to be. Thus, as the company struggles on how to compete in the global market, they hired skilled programmers in order for them to provide better insights and ideas.
Me, sir? Are you asking me? For real?
I'm asking you too, Miss De La Cruz and Miss Rojas.
It really hurts.
It really hurts. Ang magmahal ng ganito kung sino pang pinili kong hindi makuha.
Sorry, sir. My bad. But what if we sell our code?
Okay. Sounds good. Let's do that.
How you like that?
Look at you now, look at me. Look at you now, look at me.
They sold their code and formally registered their company name Microtech, a combination of microcomputer and technology. Microtech's 8800 interpreter was immensely popular with programming enthusiasts and computer hobbyists. 2 years later, the newly rebranded Microtech exceeded 1 million pesos in annual revenue thanks to the popularity of the 8800. The company would have celebrated, however, another problem arises.
So our competitor Netscape company launched their own internet browser. We need to expand and improve our technology into a more consumer-friendly manner. Here, sir.
Okay, let's set a meeting and discuss things thoroughly. Okay?
So, based from our company's research, we need to invent the new voice software through which it will voice out the type information in the server.
I agree with you, Miss Agustin. This voice interpreter can be also a big help, especially to those who are blind.
Yes, that's the purpose of it.
I agree, ma'am. I think we should add software like Excel and in those in making PowerPoint.
Yes, excellent! Good job!
Microtech software might be facing a lot of challenges, but they managed to maintain an iron grip to be able to stand still amidst the competitive global industry. Microtech managed to come up with a more creative and at the same time consumer-friendly and technological software. The company has focused greatly on its employees' feedback on the company's work environment. A more positive and organized work environment leads to a better communication and relationships with co-workers and leads to prosperity as a whole in the future. Staying on track with advancements within the workplace is crucial in the success of a company because as society progresses in terms of technology, those companies that under this may stay updated regarding this innovative technological advancement for them to function at their best. Microtech occupy a truly unique place in the history of computing technology. Without Microtech, the world would look a lot differently than it does today, and Ray's relentless drive to succeed was a driving force behind his company's incredible growth and longevity.